I don't know exactly what I was expecting to see, but Johan with 2 giant steins of beer singing "Skål" for like 3 hours straight was incredible. But yeah, that was a little bit of my trip. Mick, what'd you do this week?
I ate most of Spain in paella. I think I ate my body weight in kilograms. I've learned they use that there.
You're pretty familiar with that term of measurement, though, if I remember your childhood.
And the City of Arts and Sciences Center is very Muppet friendly.
There
So
we go.
I think it is anyway.
So yep, there we go. Welcome to Coffee Talk with Serge, our bi-weekly-ish cybersecurity news and comedy segments. My name is Ryan Kovar. This is Mick Baccio and Audra Streetman. And we thought we'd start off today. Mick and I had a bit of traveling for cybersecurity conferences and customers. And Mick, you were just in Valencia.
I was. My first trip there, I had a chance to speak at the United Nations International Computing Center, the CommonSpirit conference they put on. It was the UNICC, the UN Development Program, and the first technical colloquium. I know I'll butcher that. I always get it wrong. We got those photos there. That's Tima Sona. She's a cybersecurity chief at UNICC, like doing all the work. A bunch of speakers there from the day I spoke, and my first proper thought leader photo. I really feel like I've captured the essence. It was a fantastic time. The UN mission to me, I think, is so unique. When we talk about cyber resiliency, it's that buzzword we hear so much about. When you think of the UN, like they don't shut down for anything. It's politically neutral. It doesn't shut down. It has to be in all the places we think of. We don't want to do business there because of a conflict. That's where they're setting up equipment and setting up IT and setting up the infrastructure. It's a unique mission, and the diversity of the team and thought was really, really incredible, and it was refreshing. It was awesome to be there.
Yeah, I think it's a significant upgrade over the League of Nations cybersecurity conference that stopped around 1938 or so. Wonderful to hear that. Yeah, and I was, we had two wonderful guest hosts 2 weeks ago, and I was actually in Germany attending some secret squirrel meetings with our beloved colleague Johan. And this is there's that stein of beer, and we had a great time over there talking to the folks who were fighting the good fight. And those of you who were there, you know what I'm talking about. But it's really good to talk to folks who are doing frontline cybersecurity work in areas that it really matters. Then afterwards, I was privileged enough to go to London to talk to customers for about 4 days straight, back to back, talking about Surge, the research we're doing, and really getting a pulse on the work that our customers are getting out of the research we're doing, and some real world examples. So that was quite a bit of fun. And Audra, thank you for holding the fort down. Very kind of you. I heard it went well. I heard we had overwhelmingly requests for Mick and I to never come back.
Ever.
Can you just lay them off?
And that was actually from insiders at Splunk, so I don't know how to feel about that one. That was just...
Yeah. That's kind of just what happens when you invite David and Haley on the show. I mean, what did you guys expect was going to happen?
Yeah.
I didn't expect a yes. They were like, just don't do the show then. How about that? I didn't realize,
I thought there was going to be some pushback. Like, no, we're super. It was like, oh, thank God. Go away. Stop.
Oh, only that long. No. Just, Ryan, you're like half British anyway. You should just go stay.
Go over there.
Yeah. Extended.
Yeah. That's our cold open. You're welcome, audience. We have lots of exciting stuff today. As usual, we try to stick to about 30 to 40 minutes. Audra's going to do some info on the news. Mick and I will do peanut gallery comments. We'll talk about our upcoming events. We'll go into some ransomware. We'll do a 60-second charity today on cybersecurity awareness with the charity of the Operation Barbecue Relief, which is near and dear to my stomach and heart. And then we'll do a bit of a deep dive on Killnet, which is something all of us have an interest in, but especially Audra. So with that, I think we should roll clip for our news segment. Does that sound good?
All right. So for news today, President Joe Biden signed an executive order last week. It was on Friday, outlining a new data transfer framework between the EU and the US. So here's a look here at the executive order. And so this aims to restore trust after the EU's top court struck down the previous two privacy shield agreements between the US and the EU, if I can talk. And basically the EU had concerns about US surveillance. So this new framework, it was announced in March, and it narrows the scope of intelligence gathering to only what's necessary and proportionate. Those are the terms they use. And that includes US citizens. So this isn't just limited to the EU. It includes anyone that the US intelligence agencies are involved with data gathering. And it also includes a two-step system for redress for people who believe their personal data was potentially illegally collected by US intel agencies. So there's an intelligence agency watchdog that would first review that complaint. And then the second step is that a court would review it with independent judges outside of the US government. And so the privacy advocate who actually filed the lawsuits that struck down those past privacy agreements said that he was reviewing this and might decide to challenge it. But officials with the NSC and the Biden administration said that they're confident that the European Commission would approve this order, even if it is challenged. So what do you guys think about it?
I mean, when you fish for tuna, you're going to get some dolphins, right? Like, I distinctly remember when Snowden information came out and they were like, oh no, US citizens had their information gathered by the NSA.
No, wait, and correct me on the quote. See, it's just like, that's just stuff we collect, like we just gathered that, right? It's not collection until I've actually analyzed that data. And right now it's like, those are just books that I bought. I haven't read them yet. See, I'm
glad my library isn't behind me where you're going to call on me to like pick a book and tell what was in it. So that's good.
But yeah, okay. Intelligence agencies collect intelligence on people inadvertently, advertently, oopsies. Yup.
I mean, I have to suppose I didn't have a chance to do too much back reading on this, but I think in 2021, some of the cables that got leaked from somewhere show that the U.S. had been spying on Germany via Danish government. So they were just, Germany was perhaps rightly like, hey, we were allies.
What are you doing? Like,
hey, that's cool. And America came back and said, Zimmerman telegram, we're still angry. 1916 called, it wants its war back.
So what I love about it is the wording, and it's necessary and proportionate. Yeah. And those are very legal terms, which mean absolutely nothing and absolutely everything. So cool, there's going to be a process in place, and I hope it goes well. 100% I would challenge this, but as this is written, okay, so you're going to do things and trust people and look at okay, got it.
Yep.
But you're going to do that anyway. If the watchdog is put in place, I think that's super important. I hope it continues. But like, Spygate gonna go on.
Yeah, I feel like this is collateral damage, right? Like they're saying like, hey, average citizens shouldn't be caught up in the big game. But with modern technologies that do espionage, we're collecting data. So this is like the government version of telling Google not to blur images or like the right to remove your personal information from a Google search. This is like the governmental version. Like, this is my ability to request to have the NSA or the spies to remove my information from their legitimate collection. I mean,
scan this QR code to opt out of my SIGINT collection database. I don't know how that's going to work.
Swing on by the embassy and let us know.
Like, if you search me, if you see a little flag, just go ahead and just do not remove, do not track.
I mean, at the end of the day, governments are going to spy on each other. This is something that's interesting to me. Privacy kind of comes up a lot. This is one of the wonderful things about Audra joining our team, is something that we've talked about before. A lot of this is not something I would historically look at, because I have such a bias, but it is important. And certainly I can see why people are concerned about it. I am very curious to see how this works in the real world. Like, first off, like, is Assange going to put in for that? Like, how's that going to happen?
Wouldn't that be a selector though?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, like, if I did that sort of work and like I was looking for things that stuck out, if you check that box, oh, that's a selector I'd like to key off of.
So Audra, as someone who's very concerned about her privacy, if you travel to Europe and are you going to then
The
just submit
cathedrals,
like a
you know, they're
blind?
super nice.
Yeah,
Well,
David Bianco just put "do not track" cookie. Is there like a do not spy field that I
well,
can fill out?
there's only so much control you have, especially when, say I lived in the UK and I was a Facebook user. Facebook is obviously headquartered in the US, and there was actually a time when, Facebook was expecting to have to block sending EU data to the US without privacy protections. And that was something that they had to consider. So I think when you have this overlap of data coming back and forth with, a number of tech companies that are headquartered in the US, it's something to consider. In the UK and the EU, they have GDPR. And in the US, we have, California's data law, but it's really not across the board, and it's not the
We got
same.
thoughts and prayers. We got.
Yeah. So
I think beyond that, like certainly, if you're a tourist overseas, like your IMEI and your MEID from your hardware on your phone wouldn't stick out in any database at all. Telecom, it's fine. It's fine.
yeah, and I think the biggest thing is companies being transparent about how they use data. And many companies are not, and who actually reads the privacy agreements. It would just be impossible to do that for every company you do business with. But and it goes both ways too. I remember the British government, they actually signed a new data access agreement with the US, which is the other way around, so that the British government can request data from the US for investigations. So it can go both ways. So, the UK not only wants to protect citizens' data, they also want access to it in case they have a criminal investigation.
I'm looking forward to that. Them finally finding out who dumped that tea in the harbor in 1775.
Ixnay on the evolutionary ray.
That'll be interesting. I wonder, do you see any, like, for corporations? Do you see anything people are going to have to deal with here? Like, are organizations, like, are they just going to be faced with requests from governments to like purge that data or requests for data? Like, how will the blue team? Will this impact them at all that you can see, Mick?
Man, I think the next great debate we're going to see is data privacy. Your data is out there. You know that you put it out there. What's okay and what's not okay? How is it leveraged? I think that is going to be the next big discussion. And I think one of the biggest things that you and I have had this conversation about how, and Audra just referenced it pretty bluntly, the legislation in the EU and the legislation in the US are worlds apart.
Yeah.
And maybe this executive order is a baby step in us moving in that direction. So I'm hopeful for the progress, but I think what we all want to see in a data world and where the U.S. is right now.
Yeah, I have a hard time. Audra, I know we have like 5,000 ransomware things.
Yeah.
What?
All right, Ransomware Roundup. So last week, the Bank of Brazil, or Brasilia, reportedly paid 50 Bitcoin, which is about $950,000, to a Lockbit affiliate. And this is after it fell victim to a ransomware attack. And that's not the only attack in Brazil. There were also 3 major Brazilian TV broadcasters that had to stop live programming last week due to ransomware attacks. And I'm not sure who was responsible for those attacks. Meanwhile, health providers associated with the Chicago-based CommonSpirit Health, they're still dealing with outages from a suspected ransomware attack. This is a story here from NBC News. And so this is the 4th largest health system in the country. It said it experienced an IT security issue. It actually led to some delayed surgeries and rescheduled appointments, but it's still unclear if any patient information was compromised. And then an update to the LA Unified School District ransomware attack. That was the Vice Society behind that one. And they've actually started leaking some of the personal data of students, and that sorts of social security numbers and sensitive information. Potentially there were concerns about even medical information being released, but I don't know that that's verified yet. But just today, Vice Society claims that they've targeted several other school districts just in the last 24 hours in the US, UK, and Australia. I think it was 4 school districts that they posted on their website. And then another update we have is
Those
Lloyd.
kids would be really upset if they could read.
I knew you were going to interrupt with something, Ryan.
They can't unlock. No, they can read, I'm sure, but like they can't read because the computer's not because the education system failed them. It's a different.
That is one of my favorite memes. Too bad I can't read. He's just entering the door. Anyway, I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but Lloyd's of London, last story here, they said their investigation into a possible cyber attack found no evidence of data compromise. So they actually detected unusual activity on their network last week, but they say no network services were impacted that they know of, and they're restoring it now. So I guess that's positive news that they
Found
know
no
of
evidence
unusual
of a
activity.
breach.
Yeah, not a
Well,
that they know
as
of.
Ryan's old friend, Jim Rummy would say, the absence of evidence is not any reason not to start a war or something. I'm paraphrasing. You know how it goes. It's
Yeah.
I guess, we were talking last night. I had a late conversation with Simon O'Brien, good peer of ours out in Australia, and then James Brodsky, peer on another team. We were talking about this concept of cyber resiliency, and I have been catching up in the world of I have been introduced to cyber resiliency from the point of view of cybersecurity engineering. So that is where I first learned about this many years ago, which was around the concept of how do you design, as a sysadmin or a system engineer, how do you design a system that can not only recover from floods and hurricanes, but also recover from, at the time, cybersecurity, nation state attacks, things like this. And one of the questions we were talking about was ransomware, where if you look at, you talked about resiliency earlier, Mick, how do you deal with ransomware as part of your bigger strategy outside of this? And one of those is recovery, right? One of these is do you have backups that work? And then, what's fascinating about the LA school district is you weren't talking about none of the kids could do their algebra, or no one's graduating because the systems are encrypted. You're saying that they are releasing data about the students. So once again, we just skip straight to the extortion and exfil.
Well, this is not ransomware as a service. It's cybercrime as a service now. I think it's moved towards that. It's not just it's some nice student data you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. That's what we've moved to, and I think that continues. And Alan Liska has been tracking, folks. Amazing. It's sad. Amazing how many schools have been targeted, how many hospitals have been targeted. So the increase in frequency is ratcheting up. But to your point, it's less and less of a technical ransomware end. It's just, hey, I got your data, pay me money.
It's a talk that I keep trying to figure out, because I feel like this is once again the ransom, the invisible hand of God from Adam Smith doing ransomware. Because at some point you say, don't pay the ransom because it's so hard to decrypt your stuff anyway that you're going to pay for something and you have to recover anyway. So now it's you just skip that, and then it's much cleaner. You're just saying I don't even care that your stuff is encrypted. Just, do you want us to tell people about what's on your data? And if you pay us, we're going to, we won't tell anything because our reputation depends on it.
So how do you shut down a mob? This sounds like a Scorsese movie, but I don't have 18 hours to watch.
Obviously, we have to go after their taxes. I mean, that's
one of the other things I saw about the LA school district ransomware attack was that, CISA and the FBI were involved in that investigation. And in their response, Vice Society basically was saying CISA, you lied, or something negative about CISA, wasted our time or something like that. And, I just thought that was interesting, because that's something with such a high profile school district, to have the FBI come in and help with that process. Hopefully that could set a standard for other school districts if they are communicating with how to approach something like this.
Was it Costa Rica? I think it was Costa Rica, the one that got ransomware as well against the national infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And then they were we're not paying, and the ransomware came back and said screw you, now it's 30% more and you're still going to pay. And it was I think supply and demand.
It still strikes me as it's not. Remember when Colonial Pipeline, someone put a dent against it, and the full force of the U.S. government responded?
Yeah.
But our school.
I know not everybody's Colonial Pipeline, but you see
to the economy, right? I think that's the key point. How closely tied are you to the economy, and what effect will this have on the largest number of Americans? And sadly, even the largest school districts is a small percentage of the country in terms of impact. But if we start seeing this all over the place, we're kind of starting to see, could there be pushback and then increased pressure for
I mean, I have some spicy thoughts on that one regarding how America thinks of its children, but that's a different story for an after.
Different coffee talk. It's a different coffee talk.
Coffee and bourbon talk. We actually have a little news there. We were talking about ransomware. We've been pulling this thread of ransomware for months because Shannon Davis has done such incredible work. And he actually just presented, I think we have a photo of this, Lucky, at the Australian, what was it? We always screw this up. Australian Cybersecurity Conference? Is that it, Audra?
Yeah, Cyber Conference, yep.
It still sounds made up.
It still sounds made up, but congratulations.
It was very real.
It's totally real. It's a huge conference in Melbourne, Australia, and a great job, Shannon. Absolutely crushed it. And you'll hear more about this sort of talk of competition of ransomware very soon. So with that, we have some upcoming events as well, right, Audra?
We do. So some exciting things to look forward to. Mick is actually speaking at the California State University Long Beach location. That's October 19th. That same week, Ryan, you and Shannon are presenting.
Marcus. Shannon is going to go on vacation, so we
got to update that slide then. Okay, so Marcus and Ryan, you guys are both presenting the ransomware research that Shannon just presented in Australia. But this is going to be in Vancouver for the Digital Crimes Consortium. And then Johan is speaking at the Zero Day Conference in Geneva. So lots of events this month, lots to look forward to. And Mick, we expect more pictures when you get back from California.
Oh, no, that's a virtual thing. That's a virtual thing.
Oh, virtual. Oh, I thought you were traveling.
Yeah.
Bummer.
I will still dress up in a costume if you want. That'd be fine. I think I have
I was hoping for
costume.
Surfing.
I think as long as you work some Snoop Dogg into your talk, I'm down with the Long Beach life. So
I could probably do that. For you, I'll do that, of course. Like in my manager, why wouldn't I?
Okay. All right, we're doing a little bit of an exciting charity challenge. So why don't we go to a segment there, Lucky?
And now, Splunk's Cybersecurity 60-second charity challenge. Remember the rules. You've got to get through an entire subject in 60 seconds, or you donate to today's charity of choice. Good luck!
Right.
What are we doing today, Audra?
So today's charity challenge is actually the three of us are going to compete in this one. And as we all know, October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So figured the topic this time could be what our most valuable tip would be that we want to promote for Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So who wants to go first?
Well, let's do rock, paper, scissors, stone.
What's our charity?
Oh, charity is Operation Barbecue Relief. One of our
pre-call, Ryan, you were very adamant. They're like, hey, this is our thing this week. This is
why. So
I do love barbecue, of course.
Our great colleague, Corey Minton, who works on the observability team, just came back from Florida. This is a volunteer-based disaster response organization that provides hot barbecue meals for those affected by disasters and the first responders. So they literally go on site, they bring tons of meat and vegetables, and they cook them up and create healthy, belly-feeling meals for folks who are in the middle of disasters. And it's something that Splunk is very happy to support. And like we said, Corey Minton just went down. He got deployed for the recent hurricane in Florida. We'd love to support him and everything that organization does. So very, very enthused by it. With that, let's do rock, paper, scissors. Audra, you and me first. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
This is never going to work online.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, it's not going to be at the same time. All right.
This is going to go horrible.
No.
All right. Here's what I'll do. I have a number underneath the mic. How
about Ryan? You go first.
All right, that's fine.
And then Audra, and then I'll go.
Okay. So the reason we're doing this order here is, as you may notice, I'm in a new location because the AT&T man cut my power for the internet. So I had a wonderful script that would have won, but instead I'm just going to go off this because Audra is participating. Lucky, our voice of God in the background, will actually be the voter. So I'm going to try to do this from memory. We will see how it goes. Lucky, give me 60 seconds. Okay, so here's the thing. When I worked at DARPA, we had a philosophy, and it was called HINKY. And what we meant by that was humans are the sensor. When you see something weird, say something weird. And if you've never heard of this concept of hinky. It actually comes from December 2001, when a woman, a customs inspector, actually noticed that there was a man acting very odd with a perfectly legitimate passport and car trying to come across the border. Turns out this gentleman, Ahmed Rasim, was actually going to blow up the Los Angeles airport. He had a huge amount of explosive. The only thing she noticed, and she just felt comfortable saying, was it was hinky. What I want you to take away from that, if you are a sysadmin, if you're a blue team defender, encourage your network users to be aware of hinky. Tell them when you see something odd. And more importantly than that, reward them when they do. Do a monthly, the best spot in the wild. Make sure you respond to them in something more than just automated email back, because that doesn't encourage people to be part of your security program. If there's one thing you can take away today, is have your users report bad.
All right.
All right, Audra, you're up.
Oh man, okay. So the whole point of Cybersecurity Awareness Month is to raise awareness about cybersecurity for people outside of the industry, where cyber threats are not always top of mind. So my advice is something that we hear all the time, but it's worth repeating, and that is secure authentication. So strong, unique passwords, multi-factor authentication, these are some of the most effective steps the average person can take to secure their accounts. And this year's theme from CISA is See Yourself in Cyber. And that basically means that even though cybersecurity might seem complicated, it's really all about the people. And if the people adopted password managers, strong passwords, and multi-factor authentication, their accounts would be much more secure. And I also want to mention passwordless authentication, something to keep in mind as more organizations adopt the FIDO standard. And this is possession-based authentication, where they sign in with fingerprint, Face ID, or device PIN. It's much better protection against phishing and eliminates the vulnerabilities of passwords. And that's mine.
There we go. All right, hard competition today, I think. Mick?
I think so. Right, ready? Now, I know what you're thinking. He was going to talk about the never-ending Halloween-themed breakfast cereals conspiracies, or boo factor authentication, or why houses that give out full-size candy bars are actually a code for a cult. But that's a whole other thing. I think the biggest treat, the biggest piece of advice I can give to anyone, whether you work in cybersecurity, finance, service, whatever that industry is, this is applicable to anyone. It could go on forever, like a Scorsese movie. It's called Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And we're going to want to spell that out. Always spell this out. I really can't stress that enough. Now, we all need to get on the same page or nothing gets better. Now, I'd prefer if you didn't fact check me on that and figure out why you said searching CSAM isn't a good idea, not what your brain wants to see today, or any day. Stop getting these two mixed up. It's not spooky, it's terrifying. So, Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Remember that and spell it out all the time.
All right, Lucky.
There we go. Lucky, drum roll.
I'm gonna go with Audra's.
Yay!
Wow, she is now 100% successful on this. That's against us. This is
Well,
brutal.
actually, no. One time when I competed with Haley, we both lost, and that was Mick's call. So I'm one for one.
That's pretty hardcore, Mick.
Yeah.
All right, 60. We will do our matching $60 donations to. David says Mick. The right answer there, David, was Ryan, but we'll figure that out later.
Figure that out in your pip.
Wonderful. Okay, now we have some deep dive about a Killnet, and Audra, you're gonna bubble on in as well. So Lucky, let's go into the next round of this wonderful challenge of a day. And now we talk about things that just happen to be on our minds with who's ever here, because we made this up before I knew who'd accept my meeting invite. And that is why Audra doesn't have actually, we tried to ask her if she had a scuba diving photo, and the language that came out of her mouth was not appropriate for this family-friendly.
There was a hard no, right?
You
heard the no on it.
I've never been scuba diving. Mick has, though. Mick has, so.
Well, I've never been deep sea bathoscoping, but I'm in there. I'm just saying.
I've seen the movie, right? How hard could it be?
It's called Abyss. It was a fun documentary. It was good.
Shall we talk about Killnet?
Killnet. So why are we talking about this today, Audra? What happened in the news that you were a vital part of the internet community for?
I I just happened to get a news alert, honestly. I subscribed to the Denver Post, and last week I got an alert that colorado.gov was down due to a cyber attack. So obviously I clicked on it and saw that the group claiming responsibility was targeting state government websites. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. We were just talking about Killnet targeting state government websites. And I was like, maybe this is the same group. And so that's where it all began. And since then, they've also targeted some airport websites. And that is an important clarification. It did not affect any actual air travel operations that I'm aware of. It was just the site that was unavailable for a period of time. And then today I also saw some reports that JP Morgan was potentially being targeted, and their website was not necessarily down, but maybe slow to load. There you go. That's the tweet I saw. Kevin Collier right there. So, this is still ongoing. Killnet has that Telegram channel where they have, tens of thousands of, people that follow them and support, help out with some of their DDoS operations. And, I think an important clarification here is that this isn't, this is an availability thing, because with DDoS, it's just the availability of the website. It's not an actual intrusion into a network. And with some of the media coverage of this, it was maybe a little bit unclear of what cyber attack actually entailed. So I think that's worth mentioning.
Yeah, this is an interesting one to me because, people talk about Killnet. It's definitely Russian influence. I mean, it's Russian hacktivists. I mean, they're Russian arguably sponsored, or at least they're out of Russia. And they certainly, align
like
to.
You're out of America. Would that all that same category?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but they are fighting, a couple weeks ago, months ago, in June, they targeted Lithuanian and other Baltic countries because they stopped trade in and out of Kaliningrad, which Kaliningrad, for probably most of the Americans, if you're unaware, was a part of Germany that Russia just kind of kept after the war and is separated by the Baltic states. So it's just this odd little peninsula. I think it was mostly like northern Prussia, and the Russians just kind of held on to it for funsies after the war. And it is completely cut off from Russia with the exception of rail lines through places like Lithuania and then shipping lanes. And so when they started blocking alcohol and just kind of cutting down on that trade, everyone got really upset. And that's when they started doing this hacktivists. And I don't think anyone really noticed except for a couple websites that went down that only Lithuanians looked at. I think that was kind of the overall threat post had a really good article on it. Just not really sure if anyone really cared. Now they're targeting, Colorado governments and things like that.
Yeah, I think, remember when there was that whole argument about whether or not DDoS was even a cyber attack? Like if you could call it a DDoS. Do you remember that? That was a whole discussion at one point. But I think this is a good example of when we get this into, hacktivism, right? Where we're seeing, this group trying to make a statement. And that's the entire purpose of this, is to try to get attention, right? But you have to wonder where it's headed, right? So are they going to continue to announce these operations on their Telegram channel and, go after other U.S. organizations? And if so, I mean, does it matter if it's, just a DDoS attack and it's not an actual...
I don't know.
Does it escalate? I mean, is it...
Yeah.
It's a problem, but is it?
I guess that's the question, because
I have I remember when Anonymous was doing
that's my
low orbit ion cannon, and there's a reason that people have stopped, right? And I remember I used to ask this for an interview question when people would apply for jobs, and I was like, how do you defend against DDoS attacks? And the only answer I accepted personally was I pay someone more money to make it go away. Cloudflare has enough ability to get rid of most DDoS attacks. Google, Verizon, these large-scale internet providers have the ability to do this, or you just hunker down and let it go and then come back up. It
feels opportunistic. Like the bar of targeting is not, all right, wow, you hit a B team target, cool. And I'm not calling those organizations B teams, but when you look at the security posture, if you're trying to make a statement as a hacktivist, it's more of an annoyance thing, and it's working.
Yeah.
But if you look back at the anonymous targeting list, it was more opportunistic, where it was just, yeah, these are places where weak security is known, or here is a list of vulnerabilities that I got, or I scanned it and this is what I found.
Well, and the longer it goes on, the more people are able to mitigate it at a internet backbone point of view, right? Like, part of the things that's interesting to me, like, yeah, if you target like local government web networks, that could actually have really big impact. Like if you target during like the license renewal cycle in Texas, right? And you just go after every local DMV that's running like a Windows 2012 IIS box, like, yeah, you could crush them for days. But then either the internet is going to reroute your traffic, or they're going to get Cloudflare in, or it's just going to go, like, it doesn't cause lasting damage, in my opinion, historically.
It doesn't cause fiduciary damage to an impact that results in that necessitates a policy response.
See, Audra, I told him buying thesaurus.com subscription for his birthday would make a big difference in his vocabulary.
Well,
Right, it goes back to the money. Until it starts affecting the money, I don't think it'll be a problem.
but I guess it's also worth considering some of the other attacks from Killnet targeting, NATO member countries, right? It's not just limited to the U.S. Yeah. There's been a history of attacks like, Lithuania, Italy, Norway, Estonia. I remember Estonia's government said that it was one of the most extensive attacks the country had seen, but the actual impact was limited because they were able to respond effectively. And I think that's the key, is that maybe there is the potential for certain services to be unavailable for a time, which could be a negative impact. But what we've seen so far in the US anyway hasn't been, it's mainly just been attention seeking, which if that was how you rate their success, I would say they're succeeding based on the coverage. So,
but it also begs the question, you mentioned, some of the NATO partners that were being attacked. We know the US responds traditionally what it has been, the proportionality of it, what it will and will not be. However, some of our NATO partners might be less, proportionally driven in their responses, and you want my attention, you have my attention, and I'm interested in those responses from those countries that have that capability.
Well, with cyber, when you F around with Estonia, you find out.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when someone slaps you back, it's a different thing.
And one other thing I just thought of too, do you remember that report from Mandiant and Google that just came out not long ago about Russian collaboration with hacktivist groups? And I don't know that Killnet, I know they named 3 hacktivist groups. I don't know if Killnet was one of the 3, but it brings up an interesting point of, is there collaboration potentially happening with some of these members, and could Russia
that would be crazy? No. What?
Something
Government
else
and contractors working together? No.
Would I be shocked to know that they were getting their target tacitly from the Russian government? Like, I'm not saying, basically a Thomas Becket, King Richard.
If
like,
I had pearls,
no one rid me of this metal country, King Henry II, right? So, yeah, I'm sure that's happening to a point, especially the sheltered point. It'll be fascinating. We are just about at time. I've really enjoyed today. It's very nice to be back, even if I'm in the second bunker. Which is lovely and underground.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. Thank you. We'll be back in 2 weeks, which is going to be absolutely wonderful. We'll talk about more exciting cyber things. We'll talk about some of the talks that we just gave and all sorts of things like that. Anything else, Audra or Mick? Anything I'm missing?
Nope. I think that's it.
No, but I'm thinking we should really do like a coffee talk after dark and have different cups. That'd be great.
Yeah.
We'll do that at DEF CON this year.
And the last thing I'll say is don't overreact to Killnet's operation, but monitor it, right? Like that's, I think, the takeaway is that it's not.
Follow Audra on Twitter for all of your hottest Killnet takes.
Yeah.
He's on top of it. You're doing great. All right, Lucky, take us away.
Bye.
Surge.